And good morning, everybody, on the drive session with Lakhi Singh, the property fixer. I think we've got Lakhi Singh on already. Already on. Outside, yes.
I'm here, yes. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? I'm Lakhi Singh. How are you doing? So you've already been added, which is excellent. It knocks out my introduction. So I'll do the introduction while you're here. So we're lucky and blessed to have the famous Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, on the Drive Time live session, as ever, Monday and Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. So it's called the Drive Time because it's during Drive Time. So the topic that we've got today is interesting. It leads on from a very interesting topic. A lot of people are still not aware of, people in property especially, which is LPA properties. Sorry, LPA receivers. I apologize. And the Law Property Act 1925. So before we continue, the saying of the week is, or the weekend, is it's better to be a glow stick. There's no harm in being a glow stick. Can we know what a glow stick is first, Lakhi Singh? Do you know what a glow stick is?
No idea.
Right, it's one of those sticks that are used, I think, if I'm not wrong, they're used in emergencies, or they're used out at sea or under caves or stuff. You must have seen them in the movie. You shake them, you break them, and you throw them down, and they create light. That's what glow stick is. I think a lot of people use them at raves and dance venues and stuff. And they're called glow sticks. So the topic for this weekend is, it is better to be a glow stick because sometimes you need to break before you shine. Very extremely metaphoric, I think it's for life and its journeys and learning from life and your ups and downs. But the important word is learning, because lots of people go through life making the same mistake and they don't learn. It takes a lot of strength, I think, to learn from your mistakes, but it takes even more strength to assess those strengths and make a habit of not making those not making those mistakes again. I'm a bit out of it today. I think I'm still sleepy. Yeah. So in life, I think we tend to be circular. We tend to have the same habits. We tend to behave when we come in front of the same problems in the same way, a bit like Groundhog Day. And you see that movie, Lakhi, the Groundhog Day?
I think I remember seeing it a long time ago.
Yeah. You know, it's about a person who continually ends up in the same place, doing the same thing over and over again until he changes it, changes his behavior pattern, changes the way he behaves. And the purpose is obviously for a different outcome. Basically, people behave in a certain way. They are tuned, they are trained, they are brought up, they create as a habit. And that particular way is this cycle of life. And the cycle of people is predicted by the way you confront your hurdles, controversies, mistakes, whatever you want to call them. So the saying is, it is better to be a glow stick because sometimes you need to break to start shining. I think a clever way of packaging that. So what do you say to that, Lakhi Singh? Do you think you're a bit of a 6'4" glow stick? Do you need to be broken somewhere? Broken, like kicked in the shins maybe? Or thrown off a building to shine? Do you think that will make you shine?
I think that could be the end of it.
What will be the end?
Jumping off a building to try and shine, that's not going to quite work.
Yeah, I mean, the concept is you need to break to shine. That's what a glow stick does. So, I mean, do you think that's right as a statement? Do you need to break before you shine? Do you need to go to rock bottom sometimes, face the difficulties before you wake up and smell the salt? Or are you a person who continually does the same thing, irrespective of what happens?
Well, I think a lot of people have to come to the bottom to realize what their potential is. But it doesn't always have to be the case. If you can wake up and smell the coffee without having to hit rock bottom, that's a lot better. Otherwise, you're forever running in the same space. But some people are happy in their lot, and they're happy to be stuck in their lot. So it all depends on where people are, and a lot of people can't always handle their lot.
Okay, but okay, you're a successful shaker and mover in the square mile. What do you say then? Have you developed the habit of doing things cyclically, or are you a bit more of a linear thinker? Do you learn from your mistakes and fix them and then change those habits to make yourself better?
I try my best, but I don't think I always succeed. I think having self-reflection and being able to change and adapt is always easier said than done. And I think as soon as you get into the psychology that's easy for you, that's when you're most likely to actually fail and start thinking that you're invincible. So I think it's better to be in the thinking process that you always have something to learn.
Excellent, excellent. Well, talking about learning, I think we've had the gentleman on before. It's a famous MC, Punjabi Mundia is one of his signature songs, something that defines him. Gentleman who has seen success and is still seeing success. Ninder Singh Johal, and I think we got him backstage. So we are. Ninder ji, how are you doing? That was a quick. You didn't let me complete my introduction. That's right.
You good?
Are you?
Yeah, fine. Just recovering from yesterday. I was in your patch. Well, not your patch. You're in the Middle East. I was in London all day till about 1 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you good?
Everything's good, and we are good. And just for everyone's knowledge, Ninder Singh is not a bit of a night stalker. He doesn't go around knocking on people's houses in the middle of the night or chasing his old girlfriends up. This was probably more to do with he's got a first launch, I think, of his event management company. It's the Signature Awards. Is that right, Ninder Singh?
Yes, Mr. VJ. Let me tell you what's interesting today is this is the first time I've been involved in chatting to you two, and it's not drizzling outside. It's always drizzling. So today it looks really nice. Yeah, you're right. So I was in London yesterday and the previous week, just getting the infrastructure and the promotion around the awards.
Getting your tentacles out, getting your feet under the London desk, like that.
And it's been interesting because, for the last year and a half, we've been talking, amongst other things, around the COVID, when events would come back. You've been pressing me, you think they'll come back? What does 21 look like? What does 22 look like? And it's been really interesting. There is a percentage of people out there who are still reluctant, reticent, very hesitant. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people out there who have now looking positive for the future and out and about. And yesterday, London was busy. And you can see it every week I come down. It's getting busier and busier. And of course, this weekend, it's the first weekend where the Premiership comes back. All the theatres are open, all the festivals are happening. So it's going to be a crucial weekend, this, to where we go for the next 18 months, depending on what happens.
Excellent. So you're actually at the start. So you see, and London, it's quite much different than the rest of the country because it is where business happens. People don't waste time in London, and this is not an arrogant position. it's just the way it is. It's a big city. We've got all the financial institutions here. All the major decisions are taken. The Bank of England is here. So I think there is a general air of London that takes a bit of getting used to for people outside. But it is where things happen. It's where people actually talk business and do business, not just talk. That's why it's a big difference. So,
and then the thing's cut off somehow. I think he's talking. You can't hear him. Oh, sorry. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Lakhi?
I can hear you fine.
Excellent. Okay, so what I'm saying is, Lakhi Singh, what's your input? Can you see, can you feel, you've got a habit of feeling your way through things. You've got lovely, feely long fingers. Is the city coming a buzz? Is it, do you feel it coming to life all of a sudden now?
Well, it's too early to say because I think a lot of people are on holiday now. But considering it's holiday time, it is pretty busy. I mean, on the tube this morning, it was quite chock-a-block. Around 6:30 this morning, I think the tube was pretty, I wouldn't say it was packed, but it was more than 50% what it was about 4 weeks ago. So I think things are definitely hottening up. And I think
wearing sandals and sunglasses and Hawaiian shirts, or is it people who are going to work?
I think it's mostly workers at that time in the morning.
Okay, so Ninder Singh has jumped in first. I think we'll go back to Ninder Singh in a bit. The topic for today and the topic for today's discussion is there a way of stopping LPA receivers selling properties? And we've come across this topic a few times. It's very daunting for people who are in property, even the large landlords or what you say, the small ones, who have LPA receivers knocking on their door or putting notices on outside, taking over their properties without court orders, without a proper order from court, walking in. It's not something we're not used to it. I think we find it very draconian when we first come across it. And I think, Lakhi, you said once, you did find it very daunting, finding people slapping, notices on the doors of certain properties and your friends' doors, saying that they would take over if XYZ was not done. And it didn't feel like the process that you are used to in United Kingdom, a place that is organized, that has proper rules, proper systems. People are given a chance to go to court, present their matter. It felt like everything had gone back 200 years. So I'm not sure what Lakhi's doing because he's muted out or he's left us. Lakhi, are you there?
I haven't muted out. I'm just pictured out.
Okay, you pictured out. Yeah. So what do you say to that topic? Is it possible to stop them selling properties? Because I know it's a bit of a draconian law. It's in most all of the terms and conditions found in the from the lenders who give you the mortgages. Is it possible? Are there situations where you can stop an LPA receiver doing what he wants, being it that an LPA receiver is regarded as being the agent of the borrower? A lot of people don't understand that, but it is complicated, but very simple at the same time. What do you say, sir?
I think it's definitely possible to do something about it. The quite problem is that majority of people out there wouldn't know how, and there isn't really any, because the system is so geared towards the banking system, and most of the law firms are affiliated to banks in terms of them being on their panel for lending. I think a lot of solicitors are not keen to take on the banks to try and take properties back from them. So I would say the system is a bit of a one-way street. And if you want to reverse down a one-way street, there's only one way, which is talking to us. And we do have solutions on the table. So we can actually check all the paperwork to see if it's been done correctly. And there's a good chance that a lot of these things aren't done properly, as I was saying in the last session, that they tend to use the wrong address sometimes and write to you there, so they can actually take the properties from innocent landlords by stealth. That's one cheeky strategy some of the banks use. The second strategy they use is that they tend to be they've got a very short notice period, so they can just give you a notice for something very small, something minor in your contract, and they can also sometimes make up things that's been broken in the contract, which is not even true. And thirdly, what they tend to do is they come and change locks sometimes and start collecting the rent directly, and they've got the power of sale. And a lot of people aren't really aware of these things. So there is a way. First of all, using litigation. The second way is actually using finance, because prior to them appointing receivers, we have a position where we've got a lot of private lenders that can lend commercial unregulated money to actually bail people out. And thirdly, if the numbers are two types of finance.
We're going to go through different formulas in a minute. We're going to go back to Ninder Singh. Ninder Singh, I'm going to ask you the question. Have you ever attempted to drive up a one-way street in reverse gear?
I haven't, but I have sometimes been blind, not spotted a no entry, and gone down the wrong road and had to rapidly turn around and reverse back.
Rapidly turn around. Okay, but we're going to apply it in a positive context first. Lakhi says there are ways to reverse out of a one-way street. What if you were reversing in the right direction into a one-way street? Then you're actually just driving your car in backwards. Is that right?
I think what you're posing first thing in the morning, having spent that many hours yesterday in London, it's a bit perplexing. I can't get my head around the complexity.
Right, we'll keep it simple, sir. We'll keep it signature awards. Tell us a bit about it, sir, because you're the first in. I think you're going to be one of the first event companies jumping into London. Remember, the city of London is a bit like going in front of Dragon's Den. You get it wrong, you end up going back with your purse is empty. You get it right, you get the money from the dragon, and he becomes a partner. You're going to London, you're first in. Tell us, are you worried, or are you positive?
Okay.
What made you take the decision?
Okay, so two things. Firstly, we're doing an event in Wolverhampton on the 1st of October, so that's our first event.
Yeah.
I think there's two ways around entrepreneurship here. One is you can watch the world go past you, and you can say, I want to do something, but I'll wait for the right time. And that right time never arrives. That's the first thing. So it's a bit like what you were saying earlier. So we sat here and we were watching the world go past, and obviously statutorily we couldn't do anything legally because the government said you can't do anything. And for us, I think the big turning point was when they said, I think it's August the 16th, if I remember, they're turning off the ping where, just because you're in the room with someone, if you had a double jab, then, you can't be asked now to self-isolate. That, I think, was the biggest thing for us. In terms of now, how do we think the events are going to go? You've always got to think long-term strategy. You've always got to say, well, this is our 5-year plan. Where does this year sit within a 5-year plan? And so I think even if we only break even, we'll have done something around the branding and the marketing exercise. So this is this is a long-term plan. It takes 3 to 5 years before you start to embed a brand in a region. So this is the long game we're playing here. In terms of risk, there's risks attached to everything. And they would say if something wasn't risky, it probably hasn't got the upside to it, if that makes sense. You know, you're not going to really do something with it. So everything that has a risk attached to it can go both ways. It depends how you calculate that risk, and it depends what outcomes you think you're going to have with that risk, and how that risk fits in your long-term strategy. Our long-term strategy is to be a major player in the London area. We've done well in Birmingham, done well in Leicester, done well in Wolverhampton, and at some point we're going to have to take that bite. Now, the pros and cons. The cons are there is still a percentage of people who are reluctant to come out. Agreed. But because of that, that means not many people are doing events. So the advantage is an opportunity there because no one else is doing anything. But for those who want to go to an event, remember, those who want to go to an event, you have something for them to go to. So, you know, you just scan the environment, understand where you sit, and not always think about the people who are pessimistic, but think about the people who are optimistic and want to go somewhere. So you're putting something together for them.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question to Lakhi. Lakhi, have you ever been in a rocket that's static and you watch the world go by? Was it not better to stay on the planet or sit in a rocket thinking you were going to watch the world go by as you go off in your rocket to another part of the universe? Would you like to answer that question?
Whatever.
Pardon?
But whatever.
Right, whatever. That sounds a bit of a Martian answer. My answer to you. Anyhow, we'll continue with that. I'm going to go back to Linda Singh. Okay, can I ask you, Linda Singh, is this an ethnic type of an award? Because it seems to be in high ethnic, unless it's quite a high ethnic area. Birmingham is a high ethnic area. I think Wolverhampton is also a high ethnic area. Are you concentrating on a particular community, or is it just that because it's your neck of the woods and you have your tentacles firmly on the ground in these areas?
Well, each of those places you refer to is a city, and most cities are multicultural in their makeup. So therefore, when you go into a city, you're really trying to attract everyone from every sort of community. So one of the things I think we do have as an event company is that our events are diverse, and maybe it's because they take place in cities, major cities. So we always look for a diverse audience, not all Asian, not all non-Asian, but a mix of everything. And I think that's what makes us stand out, is the fact that we are a truly diverse community, a diverse event, attracting diverse communities.
Okay, so Lakhi, diversity, is that always a good thing? Doesn't it water down the objective, or is it can it work in your eyes?
I think diversity is probably secondary, but I think whoever is being nominated for a award is from any caste, creed, or culture. I don't think it's a question of Linda's getting out specifically to target a diverse market. I think the nature of what he's doing, he's targeting business people. So my understanding is that 50% of the audiences are, let's say, it's a culture. So you've got a mix of every sort of culture there. So I don't know what the actual ethnic breakdowns are, but I'm guessing it's a very good mix between all the different cultures in the UK. Probably like a fair representation of businesses. Is that right, Linda?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's absolutely right.
So is it all based? Okay, we're not going to come back to you because Lakhi's not quite clear about the mix. But I'm going to ask you then: is it based upon? Is it pure credentials? Is that what makes a difference? Is it merit? Is that what's going to get you the award, or is it personality, because personality can take you a long way.
I think ultimately it's about the numbers. It's about the numbers, and if the numbers can justify your personality, whatever you say can be backed up by the numbers, then that's what succeeds. At the end of the day, people who invest in businesses, when you look at finance, it does come down to the numbers. The numbers both yesterday, the numbers today, and the projected numbers going forward. Because otherwise it's just words. So, Mr. VJ, Lakhi's right. The common thread amongst all the events, it's around business. Business is all about investment, risk taking, and it's all based on numbers. Because if you can't turn a profit, then you don't have a business there. And again, of course, as we know, VJ, if you look at the stock market, if you look at all the unicorns, if you look at all the tech companies coming in, their numbers is part of only the story. Most of them are loss making, but the story, the potential forward is scale up, and that's where investors take the long-term picture, not just today's figures or yesterday's, but what's the projected figures. All that kind of criteria comes into determining who's a worthy winner. Part of it is the numbers. Without a shadow of doubt, without the numbers, you have no basis for a discussion and no basis for an application.
Okay, Lakhi Singh, criteria and numbers. I want to apply that back to the topic about being able to stop LPA receivers, the criteria. So tell me, you mentioned what there are ways, different means of stopping an LPA receiver sell the product. One was, I think we started off with bridging finance, is that right?
So yeah, one is getting finance of sorts, finance, usually the quickest finance, and the other is by way of scrutinizing the way receivers have their duties, and it's not always the case, but at least 50% of the time, we notice that the receivers are not following the correct protocols, and that is enough to be able to discuss them. And then, thirdly, they are anchored in on organizing a potential sale of the asset as well to a buyer. We've got a massive buyer database. So, in other words, it's more or less impossible for LPA receivers to railroad sort of landlords. And at the moment, I'm not sure whether you're aware in there as well. Behind the scenes, while everybody's been talking about COVID-19 in the press, there has been lots of draconian stealth type events where banks are going in and taking over properties, but it's not really being reported because it's something that and there's very little reporting.
Isn't that because there is a legal position when it comes to LPA receivers, and that is these people are taking your property over under the terms and conditions, and the repossession of a property through an LPA receiver hasn't an entry into the statutory book, so you don't really know how many properties are being taken over, and that's why you're calling it stealth. Because the banks don't need you to take you to court; they just say you've defaulted on your terms. Therefore, we've appointed LPA receivers, and they are now acting for and behalf of the mortgagor. So they act as the agent of the borrower. Is that right, Lakhi Singh? Or what does that mean? Before we ask you to answer that question, we're going to go back right to Ninder Singh and ask him, are you finding that lots of things that you're doing in the event management business have changed since 2000 in terms of the way you're having to market, the way you are trying to attract your event to people, the way you're trying to give confidence to people to attend? like you said, lots of people are probably still hesitant about being in crowds. What are the techniques that you are using to get people back and excited in attending your event?
Let me, thanks for the question. Let me just chip in with what you both are discussing about people taking things under stealth. I think one of the main common areas, me included, is when we sign contracts, we don't really read them. And what we don't do is we don't think of the risk in terms of the worst case scenario. So if the worst case scenario happens, what's the implication of it? And are we ready to deal with it? Now, the great thing about entrepreneurs is they're always optimistic. They're always seeing the positive side of things. But many don't factor in, if things go wrong, what's the outcome? And then, of course, when things go wrong, then they're all scrambling around trying to understand how they got themselves into this position and how to get out. So I think my advice to anybody, if they're getting into a legal contract, I know it appears expensive to take legal advice, but believe me, in the long run, that will be of benefit. You can go to sleep at night knowing that you've understood the document you've signed. And of course, everybody sends you a document. The T's and C's run on for pages. Have you noticed they're always in tiny print, so you can't even read the damn thing? And they run for pages, and of course, they make the assumption that you're just going to race past that. You're going to see the main things. You're not going to read the small details. You'll sign it, and it's gone. And then, unfortunately, there's probably a clause in there which says we don't have to go to court. We can do it as per the condition that you're signing. And that's where people like Lakhi Singh have to come in and they explain, well, listen, this is what you signed. This is reality. We might be able to get you out of it. But really, and so I would say to anybody who's signing documents like that, if it's around property, talk to people like Lakhi Singh before you sign it and say,
I think, okay, Linda, you're bringing out a very interesting topic. I think one of the most undermentioned items is the fact that the Law of Property Act, or the clause that relates to an LPA receiver, is ingrained in every term and condition. So it's even in your home mortgage. So it's a shock to a lot of people, but the Law of Property Act receiver clause will be found in your normal home terms and conditions. Now, the only difference is that you will find it in your standard residential mortgage, but it can't be applied because in cases of a home loan, there are 2 or 3 things that keep LPA receivers off the front door. And one of them being the matter of human rights law. So the right of peaceful existence, your right to your abode in safety. And therefore, the Human Rights Act means that the LPA receiver clause in a home mortgage is waived. It doesn't have that enforcement. Or another way of saying it is, it can frustrate the contract, and therefore it is removed and never applied. The second thing that has strength in terms of a residential mortgage is that there is a word called forbearance, which is what the banks have to exercise, keeping in mind the Human Rights Act, to not be too commercially aggressive with people who are living in a property as their main residence. And going back to the terms and conditions, a lot of people are not aware of the fact that you are relying upon your solicitors. Remember, unlike a contract that maybe Ninda would have gone and scrutinized, which is more commercial about royalties and other sort of industry norms, where the contracts are possibly somewhat drafted specifically about what's happening, or the individual person or event, or the service. With standard mortgage terms, you actually have solicitors appointed. These people are called conveyance solicitors. But these people don't turn around and tell you anything about the risk, because what they're looking at is it's a financial matter. Can you afford your mortgage? Yes, you can. Do you know that you have to keep up your mortgage payments? Yes, we do. And apart from that, I don't think I've ever come across a conveyancing solicitor who's going to tell you that the contracts aren't even fair. Because in the law of contracts, every contract is deemed to be equitable. I don't think any mortgage contract I've read in the past 20 years has ever been seen to be equitable or even fair. It's all one-sided for the banks. Lakhi Singh, what do you have to say to that? Do you want to employ another solicitor to read the contract, even though you've got a conveyance solicitor who's supposed to tell you all this?
I think what they should do is, it's a bit left of field here, is to have something called a fund solicitor that actually entertains you while they explain the risks to you so people really get it. Maybe that's a new way of actually getting the message across to people.
Oh, a fund solicitor.
Fund solicitor. I'm not sure if that works, but fund and solicitor go together.
Fund solicitor or fund solicitor?
They pay attention to holidays or going abroad or having a nice time and where they're going to party. If somebody could actually bring up the same emphasis in terms of what the problems they may have in a contract, people may listen. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think Minda's got a point there, but I think people are used to a certain process, and we normally rely upon solicitors. And solicitors, especially conveyance solicitors, they're a bit dry and boring, and they expect that people signing a mortgage are going to accept the mortgage, because the other problem we have is lenders aren't going to change the clauses for one mortgagee. They're going to tell you to sling your hook and let someone else buy the property. They're not here to argue the point about their T&Cs with anybody, because they're just too big. So you have got a problem there. And I think the point Ninda makes is really all about finances. You shouldn't be buying commercial assets if you're close to the wire in your finances. If you depend upon this asset for your lifestyle as well. You should really be doing it when you've got enough money aside to be using this money literally to service the debt and value add and sell it with, capital gains. I think that is right. And a lot of, 90% of people who are in property haven't bought property with that formula. So what do you say, Ninda? Are you in the property space in any way? Are you dabble?
Yeah, I've got some.
You got a couple of million in your back pocket that you like to flutter?
I have got some commercial properties that I rent out to other businesses. But I think back to your point about appointment of advisors. Now, there's some advisors who are proactive, who will search for answers for questions. There are others, I agree with you, are purely transactional. Here's the contract, sign it, please, transaction done. And I think, and we've touched upon this before, I think as entrepreneurs, we've got to go on a learning journey, and we should do some learning ourselves. And I remember when we did the record contract, I had a fantastic lawyer from London. And, I watched him work, what questions he asked, and I learned a lot from watching him, which made me a little bit more, when I study contract, I look for those same things. So I think every transaction you do, you should learn something from it. And you should learn to ask questions, probe questions. And just as we talk about stress testing your numbers, in other words, are the numbers looking right? You should be asking the questions of the worst case scenario of your lawyer. If this goes wrong, what happens next? So you have to take the onus of, because at the end of the day, the lender is not going to care about the intermediary you've used. They're going to come gunning for you. And you're absolutely right. For a big player in the market, they've got standard T's and C's. And because you're buying the finance, you're buying the finance, It's costing you money. It's costing you. It's your job to make sure you know what you're getting into, and you can't then blame a third party advisor because they're going to walk away. So I think it's all about the preparation. It's all about the preparation, and it's all about thinking about all various scenarios. And you made a brilliant point there. How critical is this product or this purchase to your overall wealth? It's critical.
Yes.
Then I think it's a great. If it's critical, then you're going to have to be even more searching in your credit than you would be otherwise.
That's right. Excellent. Okay. Very good advice there from a gentleman who's in a different space, but he's got definitely well versed in lots of other disciplines in business, which is what property is. So, Lakhi Singh, LPA receivers. Tell us another general point where you think you could stop an LPA receiver selling a property.
Say that again. What's the question?
Another methodology or another way of stopping LPA receivers in selling your property when they take control.
So one is litigation, the other is bridging finance, and the third is what a lot of people don't realize also is that the receivers have the power of sale. So they can either hold on to the property and just rent them out until you sort out all that, etc. The other option is that they have the power of sale, they can put it into auction. So, so the other solution that we do have, but I don't always like to talk about our solution because they can also be circumvented if it comes to us then actually being appointed and us then watching this. So in simple terms, we would have a lot of cash buyers and we can bring them to the table. And that's another way of solving the problem without getting into technicalities.
Excellently. We're going to go back to awards. We're going to go back to awards now, the signature awards. Tell me the criteria for the people who are listening. Tell me a criteria, Nindaji. I mean, what type of companies are you looking at? Are you going to different sectors of businesses?
I think there may be an opportunity to nominate Vijay Sal as the worst jokes DJ or something. How about that? Could he, do you think he might get nominated?
Is there a category for worst joke, DJ? Ninda Sahib?
A couple of things, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to dash off in 5 for another meeting. But let me answer your question.
I like that. Sounds a bit like the red phone is ringing. He's got to put on his red tights and fly out.
So I think the first thing, Lakhi, is I'd love to nominate Mr. Vijay, but we can't accommodate his helicopter. We don't have a pad on top of Park Lane.
Nice way of telling me to get lost. I like that. Yeah, go on.
Because the event's taking place at the Hilton Hotel, and it's the centre of London, Park Lane. I just don't think we'd get the permission for you to land your helicopter. Sorry. So that's just
you try and land in Buckingham Palace, maybe.
Maybe
walk up the road.
Maybe we'll have to have a chat. So I think in the last 3 minutes that I've got, well, look, business is all about wealth creation. Wealth creation leads to increased employment. Increased employment leads to a much more sustainable community. And too often we forget the role of the private sector. We forget the role of entrepreneurs that make this economy and every other economy tick. So what the awards are put together to celebrate the entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurship genie, and other business leaders who make the economy tick. And as for the event in London, look, you can apply from anywhere around the country. We're looking for people who are in tech. We're looking for people who are innovative. We're looking for people who've grown their businesses. We're looking for people who've increased employment. We're looking for people who put something back into their community. We're looking for people who have now started to push other people into entrepreneurship. It's the whole spectrum. Geography doesn't come into it. Sector doesn't come into it. We're just looking for good business, great business leaders and entrepreneurs who are doing the right thing for this economy and this country in what's been a testing 18 months. And maybe Mr. VJSL, I will ask the Mayor of London as to whether we can get permission for for your helicopter.
Thank you so much. That sounded like a speech from a future Minister for Finance or the Chancellor. So thank you so much. Linda, you're going to whiz off, have you?
I have got to whiz off.
Okay, what's the time now? We've got another 10 minutes left. You're going to have to, we'll keep on talking, Linda. And if you have to whiz off, we will not make an issue about it and feel disappointed. We'll let you go. We'll let you stay on until you have to run off then, Linda. Tell us a bit more about Signature Awards. Who's going to be your guest speaker then?
We've got a couple of speakers lined up. We'll probably confirm that in the next 14 days. We are getting a lot of demand, and it's simply because we spoke earlier about the fact there's nothing else happening, and so people do want to mix. And I think the other thing I've noticed is, you know, for the big boys, and like you was talking about the big multinationals, you were talking about the big boys who can set their own T's and C's. You know, it doesn't matter to them to a certain degree what happens to lockdown. But for people who run smaller businesses, meeting people face to face is what makes their business tick. And they're the kind of people, I think, the hungry, energetic, positive people who want to grow their businesses. I think they're the people that are going to turn up. And those who are.
So when you're talking about the SMEs, you mean?
I think so. I think next year you'll probably find more of the corporates attending. I mean, it was interesting. I was in Threadneedle Street yesterday, and I was there a month ago. And a month ago it was empty. Threadneedle Street was empty. That's where the Bank of England is. But it was not empty yesterday. It was busy, and even though we're in holiday season, it was a bit busy. And I remember when we got into Tube about 6:30, it was packed. So Lakhi Singh's right. Things are beginning to come back, and I suspect we'll be in a different place in November. I suspect we'll get even more interest as we get closer to the event. And already we're, from the sort of indications I'm getting, I think we're already 50% capacity in. So really, with 3 months to go, 50% already gone, you can sort of see it coming together.
Excellent. What date is this event in London? Just to remind everyone again.
Well, I've jotted the date down because I'm talking to the Mayor of London today about your helicopter, but it's the 5th of November. 5th of November.
Right, okay. 5th of November.
Yeah.
Remember the 5th of November. Is that the one?
Of course. Yeah, and of course,
Guy Fawkes night.
Yeah. The only thing, VJ, is the fact it's Guy Fawkes night. We hear about bonfires and bombs and all kinds of things. So we will certainly light up London on the 5th of November.
Wow. Okay. That's something to look forward to. And I think because you're going to be the first ones to hit town with red carpet. Lakhi Singh, are you going to be, attending? Are you going to be there? Are you getting a chance to get your autograph?
Yeah, hoping to attend. So,
not hoping. He will be attending. He's not hoping. He will be.
He will be attending. Okay.
And of course,
definitely attending. I think probably have about 5 or 10 tables from various people that we know turning up as well, I'm sure.
Excellent. So it's a black tie. You do know that means you have to wear the rest of your clothes as well, not just the tie.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me, Vijay Sal.
Yes. I can expect Lakhi Singh to come in with new ideas, think outside the box. We're outside of his boxes, as he would say. So anyhow, let's continue then. Linda Singh, because you may whiz off. We'll give you another shout. Tell us a bit more about where did the name Signature event come from? Why Signature? Why not business, budding business awards or Hey Buddy, well done award? Why Signature? What does that mean? Is it a bit like the autograph in Marks and Spencer's? Is it unique and special?
So what happened originally was we were doing the Natural Business Awards, Natural being the name of our company, in the Black Country.
Natural means like from the Punjabi natural.
Yeah, from our record label, Natural Records. So that was so we first set about really trying to applaud entrepreneurs. And then when we went into Birmingham, then obviously, as with London and major cities, then finance and legal come into play because you have a lot more professionals in cities. And we thought, well, we ought to distinguish between a major financial city and a normal city. So financial being Birmingham, Manchester, London. And that's where our signature awards will take place, because that's where a lot of the finance happens. And that's where the signature came in, because normally we're just talking about contracts today, weren't we? Most of it. That's where contracts are signed. And they're normally signed with a pen. So that's where the word signature came in.
Why not pen awards?
Why not pen awards? I think sometimes you just got to go with a gut feeling. And I think the other reason, I think pen doesn't.
Yeah, why not gut awards?
Well, the reason we didn't go with pen is we're in a digital world now. We hardly use these things, so it's just will, isn't it now? So, but yeah,
e-signature awards.
Sorry,
I think VJ. I think Linda. I think definitely VJ Sal should be nominated for the worst jokes. I think he's just trying to prove himself.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm just probing into the mind, the man behind the event. So I'm trying to work out with you. Okay, so signature came from that concept, signing contracts, signing on the dotted line. Is that right, Linda?
Yeah, and then, so it's very pertinent to your subject today. Very pertinent. That's where the word signature came in, and also
signature. So it's important. Signing on the dotted line.
Yeah.
Okay,
Also,
so
aesthetically, you look good as well.
Okay. I think it makes sense. If we go quickly dash across to Lakhi Singh, because we do have an important topic about LPA receivers, and as Linda says, it's important before you're signing a contract, the signature has to be thought before it touches the paper with the wet pen. So tell me, Lakhi Singh, the LPA receivers, they seem quite draconian. Are they some like debt collection agency? Are they sort of like a separate body of people living on a special island, with big ears and, gritty teeth and knuckles embedded into their foreheads? Are they like, is that what an LPA receiver looks like? What are LPA receivers? What do they look like?
Be normally humans, and they tend to be either estate agents, solvency practitioners, law firms, or surveying firms. Can be any one of those. Are the usual suspects.
Okay, so we've just, I think Linda Singh's left us now. It's gone. So, okay, it's just now you and me, Lakhi Singh. So, between me and you and the rest of the audience, what do you think about the LPA? Do you think it's a good act? Do you think it's got a purpose? Or do you think it's a bit outdated now? Is the LPA Act outdated? Will it become revised at some time? Does it need revision?
I personally don't think it's going to be revised I don't think it's going to be revised anytime soon. Whether it needs revision or not, I think definitely. And the reason I don't think it will be revised is that the way the system is structured is actually structured in the favor of they're the people that lend, and they're the ones that rule the roost in the UK economy. So the government doesn't really want to upset the apple cart with them, because they're going to find it more difficult to run their business as usual. So I think that's pretty much the way the land lies.
Okay, so as a closing, how many minutes have we got left?
6 minutes we've got.
With 6 minutes left, enumerate to me how many strategies there are to stop an LPA receiver selling the property, and who are the leading experts? Are they sort of specialist companies that do this? Deal with LPA receivers? Is it something that a law firm can do or a barrister can do? Where are you going to get the solution from? Stopping an LPA receiver.
Okay, The leading specialist for LPA receivers is actually our firm. It's called Immediate Bank Claims, and it's immediatebankclaims.co.uk. That organization's been fighting the system and also somewhat lobbying against receivership as well, by talking directly to some of the banks as well. So they've got various NDAs signed with them to try and see how the process can be made more consumer-led rather than bank-led. So currently we've got Immediate Bank Claims, as I think is the leader in the market for negotiating and putting properties out of LPA, and probably got the most experience. But there are a few micro organizations or law firms that are out there, but a lot of them, there's very few of them, like I said, because nearly all the banks on the panels of all the solicitors, because they've got to act for them when they're doing loans. So
I think it's more damning than that, isn't it, Lakhi? Because in the Law of Property Act, that gives the right to the receiver, the LPA receiver, to act as a mortgagor. Perfectly fine. The issue is solicitors have a duty within their law society regulations to ultimately remain responsible to the lender client. A lot of people don't realize that. If you go to a solicitor's firm, you think they're supposed to be acting for you. If they're acting in a matter where the bank is involved, they will always have a responsibility to the lender client, which means if a bank is involved in your problem, they will still face the bank. Quite shocking it is, because it means they're not really acting for you when you've got a matter against the bank.
yeah, I think you did bring up the point earlier. The reason I haven't touched upon it is quite a technical point, and I think the viewers out there probably won't necessarily understand how that would work, because it almost sounds impossible that that's what can happen. But that is actually the case. But it's almost, what do you do with that? It's almost like the bank's appointing somebody to actually point it for yourself, but technically they're going to act against you. That works. So it's not even something that has any logic in terms of being able to explain it. So I chose not to really make that point necessarily, because it's so contradictory that to majority of the people listening, they're going to think, okay, well, how does that work then? So it is a very weird setup, and like I said to you in the beginning, the banks are in a position where they can point the LPA receiver for itself, and then they basically, and it's structured in a way that's completely contradictory.
So the LPA receiver is a mortgagor, an agent of the mortgagor. What you're saying, yet they're not acting for the mortgagor. That answer may lie in the definition of the agent, in the definition of the Law of Property Act. Because in the Law of Property Act, the definition of agent is specific, and it is different to the definition of agent that you may apply in any other mode of business within property. And we can explain that in another topic we cover. We'll go into details about what the agent is. What does that mean? I think we're coming off today's ending now, is it? Okay, summarize please today, sir, with the saying for this weekend. In order to become a glow stick, you need to be broken in order to shine. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
Yeah, they'll pick you up and throw you out of the window. You will break a few legs, but you will shine. I think that's what it means. Take care, everyone. Lovely speaking to you, Lakhi Singh. Always a bucket of knowledge. Very small bucket, but a very deep one. Take care. See you next week, Monday, 8 to 9, Drive Time Live with Lakhi Singh, the property fixer. Speak to you then.